I'm writing this down as a warning, a story carved into the silence where my life used to be. They're coming for me, and I need someone to know the truth. 3 days ago, I walked out of Blackwater prison. That's supposed to be impossible. I was serving a life sentence, trapped in a fortress made of solid rock, with 300 miles of empty desert around it. No one has ever escaped Blackwater. It's just a story prisoners tell each other in whispers, a hopeless fantasy in the dark. But right now, I'm sitting in my sister's apartment. The problem is, she thinks I'm dead. Jenny won't stop crying. She wanders through her apartment like a ghost, holding newspaper clippings from 6 months ago, my death notice, pictures from my funeral, where she's standing under a gray sky, her face frozen in grief. According to her, and to the rest of the world, I died in my cell at Blackwater 6 months ago. They said it was a suicide, that I was a man broken by his crimes. But I remember every single day of those 10 years, every awful meal, every guard's footsteps in the hall, every scream the stone walls seemed to swallow. And I remember how I got out. I remember things a dead man shouldn't know. The first thing you have to understand is that Blackwater isn't a normal prison. It was built in the 1950s as an experiment. The idea was simple: break a man down into nothing, then rebuild him into someone useful, or at least someone who would obey. The experiment worked too well. I got there on a Tuesday in September, 10 years ago. It was an armed robbery that went wrong. My partner, Eddie, was nervous, his eyes darting everywhere. He got scared and shot a store clerk over a few $100s. I got a life sentence. He got the death penalty. The judge told me I was lucky. Chained to 7 other men on that bus, watching the desert stretch on forever, I didn't feel lucky. The prison seemed to appear out of the wavy heat lines like a dark mirage. It was a giant cube of black stone that looked like it swallowed the sunlight instead of reflecting it. There were no windows, no doors I could see. Just a huge, dark monument to misery. "Welcome to hell," the man chained next to me grunted. His name was Carlos, and he said he'd been here before. He claimed he tried to escape once, but was found after 3 days in the desert, half dead from the sun. 10 years I've been gone, and it looks exactly the same. Hasn't aged a day. The bus stopped in front of what looked like a solid wall. Then, with a deep groan that I felt in my bones, a part of the stone slid open, showing a dark tunnel leading down. As we drove down the ramp, the wall closed behind us. It sounded like a tomb being sealed for good. Getting processed was mostly standard, but everything felt strangely cold and inhuman. They strip-searched us and sprayed us with chemicals that made my skin burn. A doctor examined me without saying a single word. Then came the psychologist. She was a thin woman with wire-rimmed glasses and hands as cold as the steel table between us. "Tell me about the robbery," she said. Her voice was flat, with no feeling in it. I told her the story. She wrote it all down in a thick leather notebook. The sound of her pen scratching the paper was like claws on glass. "Why didn't you stop your partner?" "I tried. Eddie he wasn't right in the head. I should have known he was going to snap. But you brought the guns," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah." "You planned the robbery." "Yeah." "So you're responsible for the clerk's death?" I didn't say anything. I could feel her staring at me. She wrote something else in her notebook, then shut it. "Cell block D," she said, not looking at me. Level 7. Level 7 was deep underground. The elevator ride down took almost 3 minutes. When the doors opened, the air was hot and thick. It felt like breathing through a wet cloth. The walls were made of the same black stone as the outside. But down here, they seemed to pulse with a slow, steady heartbeat. My cell was tiny, 8 feet by 10 feet. It had a metal bed welded to the wall and a steel toilet and sink that gave out warm, sulfur-tasting water. The door was solid steel with a slot for food trays and a small, thick window. That first night, I couldn't sleep. It wasn't the noise. The place was weirdly quiet, a dead silence that was scarier than screaming. It was the dreams that started the second I closed my eyes. Dreams of the robbery, of Eddie's wild eyes as he pulled the trigger, of the clerk falling down, his blood spreading on the floor like spilled paint. I woke up screaming, but the thick air choked the sound. "First night's always rough," a voice whispered from the next cell. I pushed my face against the cold stone. I found a tiny crack between the blocks, just big enough to whisper through. "Name's Vincent," the voice said. "Been here, God, must be 15 years now." "Marcus," I said. "What are you in for?" "Same as you, probably. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong choices." He paused. "What's your dream?" "My dream? Everyone gets one. First night and every night after. The dream that brought you here. The one that plays on a loop until you can't tell it from a memory." I told him about the robbery, about Eddie and the gun and the blood. "Mine's a car accident," Vincent said quietly. "I was drunk, hit a family, father, mother, 2 little girls. The girls lived, but they were hurt bad. I think about them every night. I wonder if they remember my face." The next few weeks fell into a routine. Breakfast at 6 a.m., yard time at 10 a.m. But the yard was just a concrete circle at the bottom of a deep pit, with 50-foot walls above us. Lunch at noon. More yard time at 3 p.m. Dinner at 6 p.m. Lights out at 9 p.m. But there were other stranger things happening. The guards made their rounds every hour, but you never heard them. Their footsteps were completely silent, like they were floating. Their faces were always blank, and their skin was pale, almost see-through. Their eyes had no color. "How long have those guards been working here?" I asked Vincent in the yard. We had found spots next to each other against the wall. "What guards?" I looked around the yard. 3 of them were standing there, watching us with their empty eyes. Those guards. Right there. Vincent looked where I was pointing, a confused frown on his face. "Marcus, there's nobody there." I stared at him. He was being serious. "You don't see them?" "I see walls. I see concrete. I see you and me and 12 other guys who look like they want to die. But I don't see any guards." That night, I lay awake with a cold fear spreading through me. Guards only I could see. Dreams that never stopped. I tried to push it away by thinking about my sister, Jenny. I pictured her laughing, or the way she used to sneak me cookies when we were kids. Her memory was like a small, warm light in the total darkness, a shield. It was the only real thing, the only thing they couldn't seem to touch. Around midnight, I heard the footsteps in the hall. They were slow and steady, but made no sound at all. They stopped outside my cell. A key turned in the lock. The door opened, and one of the pale guards stood there. Up close, I could see his skin wasn't just pale. It was see-through. I could see the pulsing black wall right through his chest. "Time for your session," he whispered. "What session?" "You know what session." I didn't know anything anymore. The guard stepped aside and pointed down the hall. Staying in my cell felt like the worst choice. The hallway was longer than it should have been. My cell was only about 50 feet from the elevator, but we walked for what felt like miles. The walls pulsed with that slow heartbeat, and I heard whispers coming from the stone, voices that sounded familiar. We stopped at a door I had never seen before. The guard opened it and led me inside. The room was round, with black walls that curved up into darkness. In the middle of the room, there was a single chair with leather straps on the armrests. "Sit," the guard said. I sat down, and the straps locked themselves around my wrists and ankles. The walls started to show images, like a movie being projected right onto the stone. I saw the robbery again, but this time from different points of view. I saw myself loading the gun. I saw myself arguing with Eddie in the car. I saw myself making the choice to go through with it. But then, the images changed to things I didn't remember. I saw myself pulling the trigger. Not Eddie. Me. I saw the clerk's face as he fell. I saw his blood on my hands. I saw his family at his funeral, crying over the coffin I had filled. "No," I whispered, the word catching in my throat. "That's not what happened. Eddie shot him. Eddie was the one." "Eddie was never there," a voice said from the darkness above. It wasn't the guard's voice. This one was old and deep, like the stone itself was talking. "Eddie died 3 years before the robbery, in a car accident. You've been talking to a dead man for months." The images kept coming. Security camera footage from the store. Me walking in alone. Me pulling the gun. Me shooting the clerk when he tried to hit the alarm. "I remember Eddie," I said, shaking my head. "I remember planning it with him. I remember." "You remember what you need to," the voice echoed. "Down here, being sane is a luxury we can't afford." The straps came loose. I stumbled out of the chair, my legs feeling like jelly. The guard was waiting by the door. "This session is over," he said. "Go back to your cell." The walk back took only a few seconds. The hallway had shrunk back to its normal size. I fell onto my bed, shaking. Vincent called to me through the wall. "You okay over there? You went quiet." "Vincent," I said, my voice trembling. "How did you really get here?" "I told you, car accident. Drunk driving." "What about your family?" "I don't have one. Never been married." "Why?" "The family you hit. The girls who survived." There was a long silence from Vincent's cell. Then he said, "I never said they survived?" "Yes, you did. The first night. You said you wondered if they remembered your face." "Marcus, I killed all of them. All 4. There were no survivors." I pressed my face against the crack in the wall, my heart pounding. "Then who were you talking about? The girls who remember your face?" "I don't know," Vincent whispered. For the first time, I heard real fear in his voice. "I don't know anymore." The days turned into a gray fog. Every night, the silent guard came for me. Every night, I sat in that chair and watched the prison's version of the truth on the walls. And every night, the truth got worse. I saw other robberies, other stores, other people who had died because of me. Crimes I had forgotten, buried so deep I didn't even know they were there. I saw a liquor store robbery where an old man had a heart attack. I saw a gas station where a teenager fought back, and I saw myself. How many? I asked the voice during one session, feeling completely broken. 17, it answered calmly. 17 deaths in 5 years. You were very good at forgetting. Why are you showing me this? I cried. Because forgetting is what brought you here, the voice said. And remembering is the only way out. During the day, I tried talking to the other prisoners, but it was like talking to ghosts. Their stories kept changing. Vincent's car accident turned into a murder, then a suicide. Carlos, who had told me about his escape attempt, now said he had never tried to escape. How long have you really been here? I asked him in the yard. 10 years, I told you. You said you'd been here before, that you escaped. Carlos looked at me, confused. I never tried to escape. Why would I want to escape? This is where I belong. That's when I started to figure it out. We weren't just trapped in Blackwater. We were trapped by our own guilt. The prison fed on it and got stronger. The more we denied what we had done, the deeper it pulled us in. But I also realized something else. The guards weren't real. They were created by the prison itself, made from our collective guilt. And that meant they had to follow rules. They had limits. I started to experiment with small acts of defiance. During one session, as the images of another crime I'd supposedly forgotten began to play, I refused to look. The images flickered. When I shut my eyes completely, they vanished. You must watch, the voice commanded, sounding angry. I focused on my only anchor, my sister. I pictured her face, her absolute belief in me. I know you, Marcus, she'd said. That memory was my shield. No, I said, my voice shaking but firm. I already know what I did. Showing it to me again won't change anything. The straps tightened, cutting into my wrists like knives. But I kept my eyes closed, holding on to the memory of Jenny. I killed 17 people, I said, forcing myself to say the words, to accept the prison's story. I robbed stores for 5 years. I shot innocent people. I remember it all now. The straps loosened a little. I was a monster, I went on, my voice getting stronger. I destroyed families. I ended lives. And I tried to forget because I couldn't live with myself. The chair started to shake violently. The walls groaned, a deep sound like stone being crushed. But I can live with it now, I said, opening my eyes. The room was dissolving. I can carry the weight of what I did without letting it break me. The walls were melting like black wax, showing the rough stone underneath. The voice from the darkness was screaming, but the sound was getting weaker. I stood up from the chair and walked to the door. It opened when I touched it. The hallway was normal again, 50 feet to the elevator. No impossible distances, no whispers from the walls. As I walked, I could hear the other prisoners in their cells, still trapped, talking to people who weren't there, feeding the monster in the stone. I got to my cell and found the door open. Vincent was standing there, but he looked different. Older, thinner, like he was made of shadows. "Where have you been?" he asked. "Learning," I said. "Learning what?" "That guilt isn't a punishment. It's a choice." Vincent stared at me with eyes that didn't reflect any light. "You can't leave, Marcus. None of us can. This is where we belong." "No," I said. "This is where we put ourselves, but we don't have to stay here." I walked past him, toward the elevator. He called my name, but his voice was fading, like a radio losing its signal. The elevator doors opened before I even pushed the button. Inside was a different guard, one who looked human, solid, real. "Going up?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "All the way." The ride seemed to take forever and no time at all. When the doors opened, I was standing in a parking lot under a bright sun. The desert stretched out in every direction, but I could see a road in the distance, with cars driving on it like tiny ants. I started walking. The heat was awful, but I kept going, one foot in front of the other, mile after mile. Whenever I got thirsty, I found sealed water bottles in my pockets that hadn't been there before. When I got hungry, I found energy bars. The prison was helping me leave, because I had finally accepted its judgment. It took me 3 days to reach a town. I found a truck stop on Highway 40, full of normal people living normal lives. I called my sister from a payphone. "Marcus," she said, and I could hear her start to cry. "Marcus, is that really you?" "Yeah, Jenny, it's me." "But you're dead. You died 6 months ago. I went to your funeral. I saw them bury you." "I'm not dead," I said, "but I was somewhere else for a while." She drove out to pick me up. When she saw me standing by the payphone, she just collapsed in the parking lot, sobbing. The drive back to her apartment in Phoenix was a blur of tears and questions that had no answers. She showed me the newspaper clippings, my obituary, photos from the funeral. According to the official records, I was found dead in my cell at Blackwater 6 months ago. A suicide. But there I was, sitting in her living room, drinking coffee from her favorite mug. The warmth of it was a shock after so many years of cold. "What was it like?" she asked me that night. "The prison?" "It was exactly what I deserved," I said, and the words tasted like ash. That was 2 days ago. This morning, Jenny went to her job as a nurse at the hospital. She told her boss about me, hoping for a logical explanation. Maybe I had been in a coma, or it was a case of mistaken identity. Anything rational. When she came home tonight, she was pale and shaking. "I asked Dr. Martinez to look up your records," she whispered. "He's been at the hospital for 20 years. He was there when they brought in the victims." "Okay," I said, my stomach tightening. "Marcus," she said, spreading a new set of papers on the coffee table. "There were no robberies. You were arrested for breaking into an abandoned warehouse. There were no weapons, no violence, no victims." She showed me the real police reports, the real court records. I had been sentenced to 5 years for burglary and was released after 3 for good behavior. "Then you came home," she went on, her voice breaking. "You lived with me for 2 years. You had a job at the auto shop. You were getting your life back together." I stared at the papers. They felt real, but the robberies and the 17 people I had killed had felt real too. "How did I die?" I asked, my voice empty. "A car accident. You were driving home from work. A drunk driver ran a red light and hit you." She showed me more pictures, the wrecked metal of my car, the other car, and the driver who had hit me, a thin man with pale skin and colorless eyes. I recognized him. He was one of the guards from Blackwater. Jenny, I said carefully, what was the name of the drunk driver? She looked at the police report. Vincent Martinez. He was sentenced to 5 years for vehicular manslaughter. Vincent, my cellmate. The man who had told me about killing a family in a car accident. But this report said that Vincent had killed me. Where is he now? I asked. State prison. He died there 6 months ago. A suicide. Just like you. The room started to spin. I went to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. For a second, I could see through my reflection in the mirror to the wall behind me. I was disappearing. When I came back to the living room, the air felt thick and heavy. The walls of the apartment were starting to pulse with that familiar, awful heartbeat. Jenny, I said, I think I'm going back. Back where? She asked, her eyes wide with fear. The pale guard appeared in the corner of the room. Jenny couldn't see him, but I could. He was smiling that same creepy smile. Your session isn't over, he said. I learned what you wanted me to learn, I answered, my voice shaking. Did you? What did you learn? I thought about it. About the robberies that never happened. About the 17 people I never killed. About Vincent, who died in the same prison, on the same day. I learned that guilt doesn't care if you're actually guilty, I said. The guard nodded. And some prisons aren't built to hold criminals. They're built to hold anyone who thinks they deserve to be punished. Very good. And what else? The guard asked, stepping forward as the apartment dissolved around me. Jenny was calling my name, but her voice sounded far away. I learned that you're not a prison, I said. You're a machine. You create guilt out of nothing. You trap innocent people and make them believe they're monsters. Excellent. And your final lesson? He asked. He was standing right in front of me now. Behind him, the black stone walls of Blackwater were forming out of smoke. My final lesson, I said, looking back at Jenny one last time. She was still on the couch, but she was talking to an empty room. In her world, I had never come back. Is that knowing the truth doesn't set you free, not if you're the only one who knows it? The guard's smile grew wider. Welcome back, Marcus. Your cell is waiting. The apartment vanished. I was standing in the hallway of level 7 again. My cell door was open. But this time I could hear other voices. Dozens, maybe hundreds of them. All talking to people who weren't there. All reliving crimes they had never committed. I walked into my cell and sat on the bed. The door sealed shut behind me. Marcus? Vincent's voice came through the wall. Is that you? Yeah, I said. I'm back. Where did you go? I tried to escape. How did that work out for you? I laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. I made it all the way home, and I realized this place doesn't just trap our bodies. It traps the truth. Everyone on the outside thinks we're dead. Our real stories died with us. So we're stuck here forever. I thought about that. About the machine. About the hundreds of other voices. Maybe not. That night, when the pale guard came for my session, I went to the room, but I didn't sit in the chair. I stood in the middle of the floor and spoke to the voice in the darkness. I know what you are, I said. What am I? You're a lie, a machine built to create guilt where there is none. You take people who died in accidents, people who made small mistakes, people who were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. and you make them believe they're monsters. The walls started showing images again, but this time I saw the real story. I saw Vincent's accident. He was the one who got hit by a drunk driver. I saw Carlos, who had never tried to escape from anywhere. He had died of a heart attack while walking his dog. All the other prisoners, all of them had died from random, everyday tragedies, but they were all convinced they were killers. We're all innocent, I said. Every single one of us. Innocence is a luxury, the voice replied. Guilt is more useful. Useful for what? To feed the machine. Guilt is energy. Regret is power. Self-hatred is fuel. But what happens when the fuel runs out? I asked. The room shook. Then the walls showed me something new. A life. My life. The one I should have had. I saw myself getting married, holding my own child, growing old with Jenny and her family at backyard cookouts. It was beautiful and painful to watch. This can still be your reality, the voice cooed, its tone sweet and tempting. A peaceful eternity. No pain. No memory of this place. All you have to do is accept your guilt. It's so much easier than fighting. The temptation was strong. I wanted to give in. A life without this horror. But then I saw Jenny's face in the vision. It was perfect, but it was empty. It wasn't my sister. It was a fake. A trap. I remembered the note from my sister. You don't belong here. It hadn't been a real piece of paper. It was her love, her belief in me. It was a force the prison couldn't understand, and it had punched a hole through the lie. The truth will set you free, I said. The vision of the happy life shattered against the walls like breaking glass. Cracks spiderwebbed across the black stone. Truth is what I say it is, the voice shrieked, its power fading. No, I said. I walked to the wall and pushed my hand against the biggest crack. The stone crumbled under my touch, revealing not sunlight, but a gray, misty place. Truth is truth, and the truth is we don't belong here. Vincent! Carlos! Everyone! I yelled, my voice echoing through the prison. The wall is breaking! It was all a lie. We're innocent. I could hear movement from the other cells. Shouts. The sound of hundreds of souls waking up at the same time. The machine was breaking down. I pushed through the crack in the wall and found myself in a huge cemetery. Rows of headstones stretched out in every direction under a gray sky. Walking among them, coming out of the crumbling prison, were the other prisoners, looking around in confusion. Vincent walked up to me. In the daylight, he was just a man with a kind face, old before his time from a sorrow that wasn't his. Where are we? He asked. I think we're where we always were, I said. Dead. But even as I said it, I knew that wasn't quite right. We were dead, but we were also free. Free from the machine that had trapped us in fake guilt. The cemetery began to fade. The other prisoners were disappearing one by one, walking toward lights that only they could see. Vincent smiled at me. Thank you, he said, for remembering the truth. He walked away, toward a warm, golden light that had appeared at the edge of the cemetery. I watched him go and then looked for my own light. It was there, waiting for me. It was soft and welcoming. I could see Jenny standing in it, smiling and holding out her hand. She was holding my real police report, the one for burglary. She was holding the truth. But first, I had one more thing to do. I turned back to where Blackwater had been. The prison was still there, but it was smaller and weaker. I could see new cracks forming in its walls. More people were dying every day. More accidents, more tragedies, more souls being pulled into the machine's hunger for guilt. But now the machine was damaged. The truth had weakened it. And once the truth is out, it tends to spread. I'm leaving this message now, a final whisper of truth into the world. I need someone to investigate, to look into the deaths of prisoners who supposedly killed themselves, check the records, compare the crimes they were supposedly guilty of with the real police reports. Look for the patterns. The machine is still running, but it's broken now. It's vulnerable. And the next time someone dies feeling guilty for something that wasn't their fault, maybe, just maybe, they'll find a crack in the wall instead of a cell. Maybe they'll remember that being punished for something you didn't do isn't justice. It's just another kind of murder. The light is getting brighter. "Come home, Marcus," Jenny says. "I'm going home now, but I'm leaving this story behind. Don't let them build you a prison cell out of shame. The truth will set you free, but only if you remember what it is, and only if you're brave enough to speak it."